Okay, we're now recording. This is the orientation session for spring of 23. And I just started by saying for the core courses, you should take the core courses first, but they're not all required to be taken before you can move on. Only the prerequisites for the individual later classes are required. So, and registration opens on at midnight tonight being at 12:01, which will be the 17th of November. And it should be open then for everyone. It's not staggered. Some different groups of students like Sikh and veterans may have had early access. And again, I'm going to point out, if you have been able to register for a course and you're not in that special group, that means you registered for a winter course. Very important. Look at the courses, because spring and winter are bunched in there together. And the winter courses begin January 2nd, I believe, and they're done by the end of January. So I can't tell you how many times students have sent an email saying, when does this class start? And they send it at the end of January, and the class is already over because it was a winter session class that is bunched together with the spring classes. So always check the dates on a course or on a class. If it begins January 2, that means it's a winter session class, and it'll start and it'll be over in the month of January before the spring semester starts. Now, having said that, it's a great opportunity, if you can devote the time to it, to get a jump and get some of those courses under your belt. We try to offer a lot of the 200 level courses in that break, which allows people to get a leg up. Consult with financial aid in terms of whether or not you're covered by financial aid. It varies from person to person and from semester to semester. So I'm not going to say that financial aid will cover it. I'm not going to say it won't. You need to check into your own circumstance and find out. Just go to the advising bot on the advising and say, will my winter class be covered? And they'll either give you an answer or ask you to schedule a session and talk to them. And I advise talking to them if you can. But once again, always check the dates when you register. So make sure that if you want a winter session, that's the one you're doing and you do it early. And if you want a real spring session one, that you make sure it's not winter and you show up at the end of January and the course is already done. So, okay, so that's that. In terms of, let's see, Nicole, does that help you a little bit in understanding?
No, yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's also, I
Okay.
wanted to see if, like, maybe, yeah, it's like we could talk to someone like individually. I was thinking
Yeah.
like texting Lizette or emailing her as well. So yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you can, any one of the full-time faculty in their office hours at the very least would be available. There also are advising hours that are going to be posted. There are advising hours for the whole college for all of the majors. And they're through January. They start right after the holidays. Someone will be available to answer your questions either in our offices or via Zoom on those days, and they'll be able to go over one-on-one. But if you have a good relationship with one of the professors and whatever, say, hey, can you take a look at my transcript? And if they can't, they'll refer you to somebody who will. And we'll say specifically, especially if you transferred in classes, that means you're kind of ahead of the game. And it might open up some opportunities to take classes. So do the core courses first if you can. But if you have some of the core courses done, see which of the secondary 300 level courses have a prerequisite that you already took, and then you should be able to take them as well to fill out your schedule. Full-time status, it varies according to which program you're in. Like if you're a regular student, it's 12 credits, which for us usually means 4 classes, 3 credits each. If you are an ACE student with the ACE program, that means you have to take 5 classes, which is 15 credits to graduate on time according to that program. And there are other requirements that might be in place for any specific program that you're in. So you should always consult the advisor in your specific program, whether it's SEEK, whether it's individualized studies, whether it's Veterans Affairs or ACE. These special programs have their own advisors and they know the ins and outs and the intricacies. Come to us in terms of asking questions about JRN or MCS or FTS. Since we're a small group here, Isaac, did you have specific questions you wanted to ask about?
Well, regarding registration, I know how to do that. I've done it myself. But for the capstone, I'm
Okay.
not really sure how that works.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's a class or if it's just like a project. So I'm not really too sure on that.
The answer is yes. It can be either one. And that was a bit of a facetious answer. I apologize. But the answer is it can be a class or it can be an internship. Actually, it's not technically a class. It can be an independent study or it can be an internship. Rarely will there be a class meeting. In some specific cases, like sometimes if you work with Professor Ruiz on doing a film or something, he might have a meeting that takes place. Or if you're in the senior, in the honors section, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm going to hold on to the capstones for a minute and see if anybody else has a general registration question. Then I'll go into the entire capstone question. But I will ask this, is everyone here on the listserv? Do you get the emails from the department that says Lisette, what is it labeled? It's JMS majors and minors?
Yes.
If you all get those emails, if you don't get those emails, please in the chat, give us your email address and your full name right now and your major. And we'll take that and we'll add you to that listserv, in which case you will get all of the appropriate texts to alert you to what's going on.
Can I switch my email because I have an old one that I...
Well, it should be your Lehman one, and you should be using your Lehman email address. But you can give us a new one. Just put it in the chat.
Yeah, the Lehman one.
It's different from the one you used before? They changed your Lehman, or you just changed when you came to Lehman?
So I can't remember, but I used another email. I think it was for like notifications or something like that. And then that's where
Really?
I'm getting the emails for the JMS, all those things. So I
All
wanted
right.
to be in one spot.
Okay, send us the email you want us to go to, and we'll just add it to that. Okay. But
There
you
are
should
some
be-
people, oh, I'm sorry. There are some people who are on the listserv simply because I pulled your emails out of the major declaration forms. But you really got to make sure that you know what's going on. I mean, I don't mean any one of you in particular. I mean everybody. It's very important because, we send out a lot of vital information. And yeah, and make sure your Lehman email is active. What you don't know can hurt you, and we don't want anybody getting hurt and missing important stuff.
Okay. We also in the listserv, in the announcement of this, there was a rather lengthy document that was included in that email, which were the full instructions on what to do on how to register for a capstone. So you should refer to that. That's what normally we would send you if you ask, but I'll go over it in a minute as soon as we have all the regular registration things out of the way. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. So, I'll get to those questions in a minute, Isaac. Next on was Ayala. I'm sorry, Aliyah. Is that right? Aliyah, did I say that right?
Yes.
Aliyah, do you have specific registration questions, or is it about a capstone, or you just
It's
get
mostly about the capstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrea, you have anything specific?
No, not at the moment.
Not at the moment. And Natalie? You there, Natalie? Okay. She's listening. You there, Natalie?
Yes, I have a question
Okay.
because some of the classes
She's
need
listening.
permission to like register.
Okay, that's a good question. For administrative reasons, any 300 or 400 level in a class, a 300 level or a 400 level class, is going to require departmental permission, which is a pain in the neck for you and for us, but that's the rule we have. All you need to do is send an email. The easiest way is send an email to the professor who's teaching it. But if they're an adjunct or if they're very busy, they may not get back to you. You can always send me an email. Or you can send one to the department, like to Lisette, and we can give you permission. That doesn't mean we will override a prerequisite. Sometimes you're being denied permission is because you don't have the prerequisite for that class. That we will not give you permission for. That means you have to take, for example, you have to take, if you're an MCS major, you have to take Media Industries 1 before you can take Media Industries 2. If you're a journalism major, you have to take Reporting 1 before you take Reporting 2. That's straightforward. But if it's just saying you need departmental permission and there is no prerequisite, or you've already done the prerequisite, just reach out to us. We go in the system, we give you permission to do that. If you know what they are right now, put it in the chat, the courses that you are looking for registration, permission for, and assuming that you are able to take the course, we'll give you permission. Okay. All right, so let's move on to capstones. All right, I did a session on this, and if you miss any of this, I did something solely on capstones, which was in the listserv. Again, the link was there. It's a YouTube link. You can take a look at the recording, but I'll give you the quick version now. The capstones or the independent studies are designed to be able to provide you, when you graduate, with something other than your diploma to show that you learned something and you know how to do something as a result of your coursework here at Lehman. And it varies. It can vary greatly between, like if you're a film student, it can be a script. It can be a short film. It should be a very short film because you only have 3 months to do it. It can be an academic paper doing research. I have one student now that is doing a research project as an independent study for her capstone on how the image of women in popular culture has influenced women in today's society and how it's created negative images and those sorts of things. So it's an academic paper, which is going to be like 20 pages plus long with references. So it's almost like a thesis. And that would be useful for someone that wants to go to grad school. She's planning on using this to maybe apply to an advertising agency or some sort of firm to be able to show to them that she understands the motivation behind advertising for women and marketing for women. So it can be an academic paper. It can be the development of a website for a client. And at this point, I will say this is not an academic exercise. Everything that I'm talking about in the capstone is real. It's not a homework assignment. It's not a semester-long homework assignment. It is designed for you to come away with something so that if you go somewhere, you go to a reception or you go to an event and somebody says, oh, really, you went to Lehman? Well, what do? You can take your business card, which you should have one, even in this day and age, you should have one. And you have a barcode on there, or you have a QR code, and you say, take your phone, scan that QR code. That's what I am. That's what I know how to do. Now that can be a script that it brings them to on a website. It can be a YouTube video of a short documentary. It can be a series of articles that you've written as a journalism major, or an MCS major writing a series of articles about the media. It's very, very flexible, and it can be the development of a website, which I started talking about. We've had people who have, they know people who are artists that had no web presence at all, and they developed their entire web identity, ranging from their homepage and their website to their Instagram accounts their TikTok posts, their Twitter posts, and created an online identity for that artist. And that person was able to use that as a client, use that was developed by our student as an independent project. So they could go to that reception with that business card and say, I develop websites for clients. They can be artists, they can be shops, they can be other businesses, what have you. Okay, so the capstone independent project is as different as you are. And that's why you have to pitch it individually to one of us. So once you have that idea, and you know, even if you don't know if it's a good idea, you're going to have to work one-on-one with one of the full-time faculty. And you need to do that quickly because we're going to be short-staffed next semester, and there's only a limited number of faculty that will be available to work with students. So you need to do that quickly. For example, I will be on leave, so I'm not going to be able to do capstones this next semester. But other full-time professors will. And if you need to find out who the full-time professors are, they're listed in the academic page for journalism and media studies. But basically they're, let's see, Professor Markey is also on leave, and so is Professor Jonah Cohen. Brucker Cohen, thank you. I just remembered. Brucker Cohen is going to be on leave, but any of the other full-time faculty like McKenna, like is going to be on leave, but any of the other full-time faculty like McKenna, like Natalie, you have a question? You open your mic and I'm echoing. Natalie, you have a question? You open your mic. Okay. So the other full-time faculty are like McKenna, Gonzalez, Ruiz. Tom, can Jennifer do capstones this coming semester?
I would, I think she might be able to do a couple.
Okay.
We need to confirm with her. She
Okay.
did a few last semester, so I don't know if she can.
Okay. Professor,
It'll be
so that's
individual.
Professor McKenzie. If you find that you can't find a faculty member, let the office know. We will not prevent someone from graduating because they can't find a faculty advisor. So don't worry about that. So let's see, Andrea has a question. Let's see. Sorry, got to put my reading glasses on here. So in order to pitch the idea, we'd have to email one of you and pick a date to do so. Not necessarily pick a date. You can send an email with a treatment, and you're gonna have to do that anyhow. Eventually, you have to do a one-page treatment and a schedule of some kind of how you'll be working on the project. But you can, if you see them in class, you can walk up to them and say, hey, look, professor, this is my idea. What do you think? In some cases, we'll say it's a great idea. In other cases, we may steer you in a different direction. We may also be able to steer you to the right faculty member for the type of project you're talking about. So the first thing you should do, which technically you should do before this point with registration opening, but the first thing you do is get an idea. The second thing is you bounce the idea off of a full-time faculty member, and as soon as possible, get a one-page synopsis or abstract to that professor. When they agree to take you on, they'll notify the office, and then we will add a seat on CUNY first. You're going to look for the FTS or JRN or MCS 481, and you're going to see it under some of our names. That doesn't mean you. That means that that's set up for people that have already talked to us. You need to come to us. We request a seat for you. We set up that seat. We give you permission to register for it, and not until then can you register. So unless you've spoken to me or actually one of the full-time professors who's available this coming semester and they already said yes, you can't register for the capstone beginning tomorrow because you haven't approached the professor. And that's why you need to do it as soon as you possibly can. So those are the independent studies. I'll get to the honors in a moment. You also can do an internship for the capstone. If you feel that an internship is the best way for you to create a work track record or a credential for yourself in the professional environment, then by all means, an internship is appropriate. There will be one section of JRN FTS MCS 481 that will be listed in the next few days that will be just for internships. But again, we will not let you register for that until you submit something saying this is where there's actually a form. Is the form available on the website, Lisette, for internship registration, or do they need to get that?
No.
It's
No.
not. Okay, you can ask us and we will email you the internship registration form. Once you fill that out and get it back to us, then we will open up a seat for you and you can register for the internship. If you do not have an internship lined up yet, we strongly recommend you do so as soon as possible. The spring semester is here now. And a lot of places have already closed their spring internships. The second thing I will say is about internships, they should be internships where you're actually doing something relating to your education here. If it's in an office, you shouldn't be making coffee and walking the boss's dog and just answering phones. There may be some phone answering. You should never walk the dog. But there may be some office work involved, but it should be office work related to what you're studying. So let's just say you're an MCS major interested in advertising and you get an internship in an agency. There's going to be phone answering there, but it's going to be relating to the work that's involved in advertising. So that's cool. That's fine. You should, though, come away with something, again, that goes into your portfolio and on that business card, and it'll bring them to an advertising campaign where you helped develop that advertising campaign. So you can say, yes, on that, I worked with this creative director and we went out on photo shoots and we did this and I answered phone inquiries about it and I set up arrangements for the models and all that other stuff. So that's how an internship can actually prove to be very valuable. So essentially there are two ways you can satisfy the capstone. One is an independent project that relates to what your career goals are. The second is an internship that also relates to your career goals. Will we get you an internship? No. Will we help you get an internship? Yes. Once we have an idea of what you're looking at, we may make suggestions or what are your career goals. But for us to get you an internship at a newspaper when you want to be in the music industry, it makes no sense, and it's not gonna do you any good. So you should, the way I usually present it is, if you want to do an internship, think ahead a year to 2 years and think of the dream place where you want to work and approach them. Odds are they will say yes. If you were getting credit from Lehman and from CUNY, we'll let you do an internship here. Very few places will say no. So think about where you envision yourself working a year or 2 years from now and approach them. That's really valuable too, because sometimes we know people have said, I really want to work at MTV. And then they go do an internship at MTV and they realize they hate it. Because quite frankly, MTV is a terrible internship. It's all office work. They don't make music videos at MTV. They don't make music shows. They don't make reality shows at MTV. They buy them from other companies. So think about where you want to work a year from now if you're looking at an internship. Now, finally, the honors capstone. The honors can be done in the independent study part, not the internship. The internship is straightforward. And by the way, all of this satisfies that requirement. And when you asked Isaac, is it a class? It looks and sounds and feels just like a class in that it's something you have to register for. For the regular 481, it's 3 credits, meaning 3 credits rather. You have to register for, you have to pay for either by paying for the credits or to set up your tuition assistance or your loans or whatever. So you pay for it just like you normally would pay for a class. You register for it. Just because we say we will take you on, that doesn't mean you're in. You have to, once the seat is open up, you have to go in and register in CUNY First. Your CUNY First has to include that capstone class in your total numbers of credits. It has to include it. It should say pending or should say in progress in your degree works. So it shows up like a regular class, and it's part of your 120 to graduate and part of your 41 or 42 for your major. All right, so you should treat it like registering for a regular class. There have been cases where people go halfway through the semester and they say, oh, I never registered, and they've had to come back and do it again. Don't let that happen. Honors, okay? The honors capstone is a regular capstone, a regular independent project, plus a second layer. So it's the 3 credit, except it's not 481, it's 491. So it's JMS or MCS or FTS 491 and 492, which is the colloquium, which is a 1 credit add-on class that you have to take the 2 together if you're doing honors, which means you're that 1 credit more than the minimum that you need for your degree with us. So what does that entail? Again, it depends on what your honors capstone project is. If it is a series of articles, it may encompass, and it depends on your agreement with the professor, it may encompass doing an additional layer of research, or it may mean making podcasts to accompany the articles that you write, or vice versa. If you do podcasts, a series of podcasts as your independent study, it may mean that you have to write articles to accompany each one of those topics. If you're doing a short film, it may entail doing additional legwork, like, for example, maybe putting together promotional materials for the film after the film is done. And this is something you would have to work out with that professor on the film side. So Professor Ruiz, Professor Gonzalez would come up with what the 1 credit extra would be. Some things to think about for the honors, though. First of all, you have to have a 3.5 index as of the end of, and let's just say you're talking about spring, about doing your capstone in the spring now. You have to have a 3.5 index last semester in the majors, in the major that you're in. That's because we don't know your grade yet. You haven't gotten your grade for this semester in the classes you're taking. So everything up to this point that you've gotten a grade within the major, the classes within the majors, it has to be a 3.5 or above. And you have to get permission from the department to do that as well. So if you think you're interested in the honors, you should definitely set up an appointment to talk to one of us, and we'll go over the specifics depending on what you want to do. And again, that's for independent projects. It's not for internships. The internships are the straightforward capstone. Is one better than the other? It's up to you. Something to keep in mind, though, one is more expensive than the other. So if you're paying out of pocket, it's 1 credit more you have to pay for honors. So some students qualify for it, but they don't bother doing it because they're too busy, or they have enough work that they want to devote all of their work into the main project and not do something extra, or they just don't want to lay out the money. It's a personal thing. You don't have to do honors. It's there if you wanted to. What does it mean? It's an honor. It's something extra that you can put on your resume. It's something you can talk about. It is not the same as summa cum laude. It is not the same as honors for your bachelor's degree. That's something different, and that's a great honor unto itself. This is just an extra little add-on, not little, it's an extra add-on for departmental honors. And it's not required. You don't have to do it if you have the credits. It's a personal decision. So that's the honors capstone. That's what all I can think of right now. There is, the internship form does not include FTS. Is that an error? If it doesn't, that is an error. You can just cross it out and put FTS. All right. I'm sorry, Tom, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was just referring to the internships being listed as JRN 370 and 470.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's JRN, that's something different. You can do internships aside from your capstone. Those are the JRN 370 and JRN 470. So if you're thinking of doing an internship and not as a capstone, you definitely can do it. And we encourage you to do that. They're not required. And even though it says JRN, they count for FTS and they also count for MCS. We just do an equivalency after the fact and say to the registrar, that's acceptable. Okay. But we encourage you to do that. The more outside experience you can get, the better off you're going to be prepared to get into the workforce, to get a job in the area, or to go to graduate school. So we definitely encourage people to do internships. Also, in each one of the 3 majors, there's something called an elective towards the major. Very often, if you're a transfer student, that's already taken care of. For example, if you took oral communication or public speaking at your prior school, they would count that as the elective towards the major. But you can always do an internship as a free elective, or do an internship and apply it in that little slot. So internships, absolutely, they're super important. That's how I got my first job in the business, was through an internship. They hired me when the internship was over and I graduated. That doesn't always happen, but it does happen. So, even if you're going to do an independent project, it's not a bad idea. And internships are out there. You just need to know where and how to look. I was just talking to a student this morning, and I don't want to go on too long, but they were applying to like Warner Brothers and to Disney, ABC, hoping to get a job in production. Those companies don't do production. They're the distributors. They're the studios that actually distribute the content. There are little companies whose names you've never heard of that they're the production companies, and they're the places that you should be looking for work. They're the ones that are out on the street with the streets blocked off, and with the catering truck, and with the actors in the trailers, and that sort of thing. That they're not done by Netflix and by Showtime and by HBO. That's where you go to see it. But that's like saying, I want to get a job making Entenmann's cakes and then going into the deli. They don't make the cakes in the deli. They sell them in the deli. Okay. You want to go to where they make the cakes. So you need to do a little research and find out who are the production companies that are making TV in New York. And it's a little bit of work, but you can do it in Google. One other thing I'm going to mention too, there is an event coming up that was distributed in the listserv. It's called the Center for Communications, and it's the Women Plus in Media. I strongly encourage everybody to register for that. I'm not sure if it's free, but if it's not free, it's like $20 and they feed you lunch. You get to meet so many people there and learn so much about the business. And it's taking place, I think, in December. I'm not sure. And you don't have to be a woman. And quite frankly, they're not allowed to ask you if you are or not anymore. So it's open to everyone, even though it was originally designed for women in media, but it's open to everyone to attend. And I strongly encourage people to go to that. I can't go to that because I'm not a student. You guys can. There are tons of events like that in the city that you just have to do a little bit of digging that are either free or very inexpensive for students to be able to go to on TV sets, in advertising agencies, in production companies, in media organizations. And we're in New York, and you should take advantage of that. Okay, I'm going to, anything to add, Tom or Lisette, before we open up again to questions?
No, I think so far so good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open up the floor. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but who has questions regarding registration? Again, registration opens tonight at 12:01 for just about everybody. If you need permissions for a 300 level course, send an email or put it in the chat right now, and we will make a note of it, and we'll give you permission before tonight to register. Who has questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No, that's a joke. Ask your questions now while you've got us. Or if you think of them later, feel free to send us an email. If you're in a face-to-face class, thank you for coming back. We really appreciate that. And we love seeing faces instead of just black and white names. But ask your professors or send us an email with a specific question, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I try to get back to people as quickly as I can, but sometimes I get buried. And I'm one of the only faculty I can be reached at jcarney, just the letter JCARNEY at lehman.cuny.edu. That's because I bribed someone in IT when they set up the email addresses. So JCARNEY at lehman.cuny.edu. And you can reach me. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to thank you for coming. If you're on campus and you've got nothing to do, at 3:30, the theater department is having a very special presentation of New Voices, which are original plays by your fellow students that are being performed by your fellow students. It's in the black box on the lower level. I'll be there. The dean's going to be there. And I know the other faculty are, they're not there this afternoon. There's also a performance tomorrow night and a performance on Friday night. And it's free, but you do have to register ahead of time. So I encourage folks to support things on campus. When there are events, go to the events. I think the Thanksgiving dinner is coming up next week at some point with student affairs. Get involved in, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. We're going to be setting up projects to set up clubs in the different majors. The first one we're working towards is SPJ, which is the Society of Professional Journalists. That doesn't mean it's just for journalists. It can be anybody that's interested in media. If you're interested in participating in a club that deals with media, deals with journalism, and bringing guest speakers in to talk, setting up tours of different newsrooms and things along those lines, let us know, because we're putting together these clubs now so that they're off and running in the spring semester. We're going to have a podcasting club of some kind. We're not sure what it's going to be under, but there's the Society of the Society of there's advertising groups. There are filmmaker organizations. All of those things. We're going to set up a base club organization that can get memberships to these different entities like SPJ, like NAHJ, National Association of Hispanic Journalists, like the Society of Professional Public Relations people, and different clubs like that. So if you're interested in participating in extracurricular, there's money available, by the way, for those things, for student organizations that we as faculty can get hold of. But if you as students get together and say, we want to have a club activity, there's money that's available for bringing in guest speakers and having events. And we want to work much more closely with different clubs that deal with journalism, that deal with radio, that deal with filmmaking and those sorts of things. So get involved. Even if you can't come to campus all the time, there are mechanisms like this, like Zoom, that you can participate, and it can help your career immensely with the people you get to meet. So that's all I got. I want to thank Professor O'Hanlon, and thanks to Ms. Diaz, who keeps everything running. You can reach out to any of us at any point, and we'll help you with any questions that you have. And having said that, I will say happy Thanksgiving next week to you and your families. And I will be seeing some of you in class and next semester and later this semester. So I'm going to stop recording and sign off. So have a great day.